Most business podcasts talk about growth like it is always forward, always up, always more. More revenue, more impact, more scale. But very few talk about what happens when growth costs you something. Your health, your values, your relationships, or your sense of who you are. Listeners, today's conversation sits in a very different place. My guest describes himself simply as the death guy, not because he's morbid, because his life and work sit at the intersection of leadership, loss, and meaning. For years, he stood at the border every week, sharing fingertip embraces with people who often died before reaching safety. During the week, he sat beside hospital beds, listening to last words and unfinished regrets. Then he did something most people would not expect. He became an MBA, completed the program in under 6 months, and moved into executive coaching and doctoral research on meaning making in the face of mortality. His work now is about one question many leaders avoid: what changes when you stop pretending you have unlimited time? Today, on this episode of the BizBlend podcast, we are talking about business clarity, personal growth, and leadership through mortality awareness. Not in a poetic way, in a practical, uncomfortable, and deeply human way. If you are in a transition, questioning your path, or quietly wondering whether the success you are chasing is actually yours, this episode is for you. So, listeners, meet my incredible guest, Seth Clark. Seth, welcome to BizPlan, and I'm really honored to have you here with us.
Thank you, Sana. It's an honor to be here with you and with your listeners. Hello, listeners.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, and welcome again, Seth. And you have spent a lot of time with people who were very close to death. In real moments where time was clearly running out. So, from that vantage point, what do most leaders get wrong about clarity in their careers and businesses?
Hmm. Well, I think that many leaders they're always looking at the next quick goal, the next quick win, right? And oftentimes, business leaders, especially, are thinking about what's the next quarter? What are the numbers? How can we satisfy the stockholders, the shareholders? How can we make sure that our revenue is up? And it honestly, a lot of it's short-term thinking, right? Short-term thinking that really it gets in the way of a lot of things, right? It gets in the way of long-term progress. It gets in the way of thinking about the leader's values, or if a company has some sort of mission beyond just profitability. Um, it also gets in the way of that. And even if it is profitable in the short term, a lot of times our short term thinking even gets in the way of long term success. So I think that having a longer view and always keeping the end in mind is really important. And this keeping the end in mind, of course, it has to do with mortality, but not just mortality in terms of the fact that you and I and everyone listening, all the leaders, all the people around the world, everyone's going to die. We all have to face that. But also, things at work, those are gonna stop too, right? Whether it's, an organization, a corporation, none of those last forever. It's a nation state, none of those have lasted forever. Anything that we touch, anything that we see, anything that we feel in this world, it has a finite amount of time. And so really looking clearly at one's own death, at one's own mortality, and becoming comfortable with that allows leaders to be more comfortable with the transitions that are happening day to day, month to month, quarter to quarter, year to year. And it helps leaders, I think, be able to face those things in life and in work and in their organizational life that are fearful, and honestly, too, that are to them disgusting, because when we think about death, of course, we're afraid, but also there's disgust, right? Because, you think about what happens to a corpse. once the person is no longer with us, and it is disgusting. And so part of with the work that I'm trying to have people do is to come to terms with what's happening with them, what will happen with them, in a way that allows them to have more strength and resilience in their own leadership, and as they deal with people, so that they're not full of fear, full of disgust, but instead have more clarity, especially around things like their values and their transitions as they come along.
I, I think this lands because most leaders treat time like a renewable resource. Like they optimize for speed and scale, but really for significance. And I feel that you are saying, like, it is not slow down in a vague way. It is be honest about what you are training your life for.
That's right. Yeah, we only have a limited amount of hours, days, months, years. And so are we just using it for the next quick hit, the next quick goal, the next quick success? Or are we thinking more long term about what it is that we care about most, in our work, outside of work even? What is it that makes our hearts tick? What is it that makes us excited about every new day? What is it that makes us feel like there's meaning in our lives beyond just, what we're doing when we're answering emails? Why are we doing it? And I think facing one's own finite existence helps that person, and especially as
Like
a leader, it helps.
want
It,
to ask, I think this is also a very important question. Um,
mm,
Under pressure, like, because you work with leaders who say values matter to them.
right? Yeah, the values do matter. There's everyone has a value system. I do think though that some people, some leaders even, they haven't clarified what those values are. And I think that looking at one's own mortality, feeling out what it means for them to be mortal creatures, it's something that can really clarify what those values are. Right? So for me, I'll just use myself as an example because I'm not just a leadership coach, but I have some leadership responsibilities in different organizations, right? The fact that I will not be there forever, the fact that I will not be on this earth forever helps me think about what is most important. And I think, yes, of course, there needs to be success as an organization, but part of that success is part of what it means for humans to be successful. And so I think through that I value relationships more. Through that I value not just what gets done, but how it gets done more. And so those things sometimes don't mean that every decision, every action plan is going to be as fast as it might otherwise, because it takes more of a human centered approach. But it does mean that there's more energy for the next task and the next task and the next task because those things that make us human are more alive, right? So when we face our death, for me at least, we become more alive. And not just me, I think there's been wisdom traditions, faith traditions for thousands of years that have taught this too. That when you consider what it means to be mortal, you have more clarity around what to do now. And that doesn't mean everyone needs to go be a monk, but what it means is that everyone has the opportunity to really put into practice the things that they care about the most. I think leaders, especially, are tasked with that. They are the models for how to do work and how to live life well.
Kind of a uh, harder version of that question. Like, is it possible that some of the values leaders claim to hold are actually aspirational stories, not real commitments?
I think so. Yeah, I think that all of us, we have ideals. Our values are our ideals, right? And there is always some sort of gap between what those ideals are and how we live them out, you know? And when talk about my own personal story, do I always treat everyone the way I want to be treated? No, no, I don't. I fail at that. Do do I always find the right balance as a leader between what needs to be done and how I think the ideal way is to do that? No, because we're human and we're flawed in that way. So we can't ever have perfection. And so I do think that leaders are often aspirational in their in what their values are, and sometimes, you know, sadly, some leaders are also, I think, deceptive. Right? They're trying to be influential by showing some sort of aspiration, but it's talk, and talk is cheap. And so, you know, I've seen many times. I'm not going to call out anybody now, but I think we've all seen it where leaders talk a good talk, but they don't walk that walk, right? They have a way in which they say big things about wonderful values, you know, how they care about the stakeholders in the community, how they care about their workers, how they care about more than just the bottom line. But at the end of the day, you can you can tell that the ratio that they speak about is not the ratio that they put into practice. You know, they do care more about their power or their ego or the money that they're making or those kinds of things than they do what they're actually speaking. And I think mortality awareness helps leaders to really consider, is this real for me? Because death is real. Death is coming for us all. Are these values that I'm talking about ones I'm actually putting into practice?
Yes, yes, yes. I think this is something that, not only the professional but or leadership, but kind of all of us,
Yeah.
we do not want to think about it, to be honest, Seth.
No,
We
no.
do not want to think about it. But it is there. I mean, I do not want to kind of I no intention in, kind of creating or triggering any fear. But when I'm gaining more and more experiences, whether it's in my personal or professional life, I believe you have to face the reality. But then there are there are people, there are channels, there are modalities, there are communities where we can actually seek help. And I think that shame or that fear or that guilt is something that kind of defeats, um, or gets us into that rabbit hole or that never ending loop, that vicious circle, that it doesn't kind of let us even ask for help. So I think that is something that I can realize.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, what you're talking about asking for help, right? Part of asking for help is realizing that we're finite. You know, we don't have all the answers. We don't have all the power. And in terms of mortality, we don't have all the time. And so having a clearer understanding of who we are, what we can do, what we can't do, who the other people and the other groups of people that we're involved with, that we're working with, who they are, what resources they have or don't have. Like having that clarity of mind and that will to act. Also knowing we don't have limit, we don't have unlimited power, but we do have some power, and we don't have unlimited time, but we do have some time. Having that clarity, I think, is very important to keep moving forward. And yeah, like you said, asking for help is part of that.
Yes, yes, totally. And connected with this, kind of a bit of a nuanced question here, said that does mortality awareness actually make people less ambitious?
What a good question. And you know, it can. It can. So I think that part of the fear around this is that what if what if I realize that the way I want to live my life goes against the narrative that I've been telling myself and telling the world? What if instead of, you know, leading this company or managing this group of people, what if I do want to, you know, run away to the mountain? What if I do want to be less ambitious? And you know, that could happen. That could happen. Some people face this stuff and they make big changes in their life. But at the same time, if we have mortality awareness, if we befriend our death even, right? Everyone's friendship with anyone else is their own. Anyone's friendship with their death and their life is their own. Anyone's friendship with their future is their own. And I think that more than mortality awareness being something that keeps people away from being aspirational and engaged and trying to move ahead, right? What it does is it helps them clarify what they want to do and how they want to do it, and especially how to move through those transitions because every transition includes a loss. And so it can make people less ambitious, but it doesn't always. So it depends on who that person is and what clarity they're gaining as they become more aware and more uh they become more okay with the fact that they're mortal.
Yeah. I uh, you know, I think the hunger that drives people to build something hard. Um, Seth, is there a version of mortality awareness that actually undermines this edge? Like, this hunger that drives people to build something hard.
Well, part of part of what we do when we want to build something is we want to make a legacy, right? That we want to build something in the world that will outlast us in some way, right? So if it's we're working hard so that can provide for a family, right? Our kids hopefully will outlast us and our grandkids and their kids and grandkids, right? And so somehow we're providing for a future that we will not see. And if we think more broadly, right, we're thinking about our countries or our communities, and we're trying to build something that goes beyond us, that somehow impacts the world, or even in our companies, right? We're trying to build a company or make it bigger or make it stronger, more durable, especially now with all of these AI transitions and there's so much uncertainty in the world. We're trying to make something that will last. And so that's kind of an immortality project. And I think mortality awareness, it doesn't say those things are good or bad necessarily. What it does is it says, um, what am I actually trying to achieve here? Right? Because the those immortality projects, they can do great things, right? They can build hospitals, they can build the Taj Mahal, they can build the pyramids, all kinds of really cool stuff. But we need to be honest with ourselves and hopefully the people around us, like, what is it we're trying to do? And I think uh, try to have those things be in line with those values that we choose. And hopefully, I'm someone who believes in ethics. Hopefully, the values that we have, that we hold, that we choose, that we enact are values that are pro social, that are good for the world, not just good for us and our stakeholders and shareholders at the end of the day, but good for all people. No, and we can't always do that, but at least that's the ideal. That's what we strive for.
Yeah. And I mean, you study meaning making in the face of mortality, set. Like when leaders experience loss, personal or professional, what separates those who grow from those who harden?
Yeah, I think when it comes to loss, right? The ancient Stoics, right? So they were in Greece, a long, long time ago, 2,000 years ago and more. And they would talk about how every day behind us is a day that is lost, is a day that your old self is dead. And so for people who really take stock in that what is behind us is truly behind us, we'll never have it again. For the leaders who do that kind of thing, who realize that one day that'll be the last day of death for us. The old versions of us have already died, and they're not coming back. One day is the last day that the last version of us will die. People who take stock in that, leaders who take stock in that, they realize that what is coming up, what is happening, this is what we have control over. What did happen, what was in the past, we don't have any control over that. And so it is ours. Today is our day. Right now is our moment to do what we want to do and to do what we need to do. And that is our gift, right? Yesterday was a gift. Today is our gift now.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful said. Ah, lovely, lovely. So before we wrap up, said if listeners they would like to further connect with you. I mean, this is such an essential and I think a very very unique conversation, especially on BizBlend. Trust me, I've never have had discussion on this. I mean, the systems or the processes or journeys, but more from um, a lived experience and systematic, not systematic, but like an approachable way. I think more and more conversations should be encouraged around this. So if listeners they would like to further connect with you, what would be the easiest way?
Yeah, I think, the best way is probably on LinkedIn. That's where so much of business is happening these days. So it's just linkedin.com/ Seth David Clark, SethDavidClark. That's the best way. And from there, you can go to my website, and I have some other social medias. But LinkedIn is probably the best way to follow what I'm doing and to get in touch.
Super. Listeners, we have all the details mentioned in the show notes, so just refer to them along with this episode. And as we wrap up, I think this conversation honestly does not offer easy takeaways, and that is intentional because mortality does not simplify life, it clarifies it. What stands out to me is this: business clarity does not come from more information, it comes from deeper honesty. Honesty about time, honesty about loss, honesty about what we are willing to trade our lives for. So, thank you so much, Seth, first of all, for bringing your insights, for bringing your depth, courage, and humanity into this conversation.
Thank you, Sana. I appreciate it.
And to all of our listeners, if this episode stirred something uncomfortable, sit with it. Do not rush to fix it. Clarity often emerges after we allow the question to do its work. Until next time, lead well. And thank you for tuning into BizBlend. Thank you.